Okay, so this is chapter 5, journalizing business transactions. Transactions are analyzed in the debit and credit cards before being recorded into a ledger. This is called journalizing. So up until now we've been using our T-charts, but that isn't considered permanent records. So the T-chart we just used that you can kind of keep things straight in your mind. Now we actually want to do something called journalizing. And a multi-column journal is called the combination journal. And that's what we use for accounting 10. The very first thing for place we put any permanent information. Recording transactions in a combination journal increases accuracy because the debits and credit amounts can easily be checked. And you'll see what I mean by that in a little bit. Transactions are recorded in the combination journal by date. And a double entry accounting is when every transaction has a debit and a credit card. Okay, so the first thing you need to know before you put things into a combination journal is there's 4 main types of source documents. Source documents are the proof of what your transaction is all about. So when you're paying a bill, you use a check stub, and the abbreviation for that is C. If you are receiving money, somebody's paying you money, that is a receipt, and the abbreviation is R. Till take is for your sales, abbreviation is T, and memorandum is anything that a note that you write yourself is called a memorandum, and you use the abbreviation M. Journalizing means to break a transaction into its debit and its credit parts before you put the information in the general ledger. So journalizing just means you're putting it in the journal. Okay, so here's an example. July 1st, paid cash for supplies, $15, check stub number 1. Means you use check stub or check number 1 to pay for those supplies. So you put the date in. So you just need to put the month and then the date. The account title. Now we know that we're dealing with supplies and we know we're dealing with cash. Now if you look in the general ledger or the combination journal here, do you notice that you have cash has its own columns for debit and credit, and sales has its own column. Those are called special columns. Anything else, you have to just put into the general debit or credit columns, and then in the account title, you write the actual name of the account. So we know that our cash is going down. That gives us a credit of $15. We have to write supplies in the account title. And our supplies are increasing, so we put $15 into the general debit. The document number is C1, and that's coming directly from the question. Let's try another one from the start. July 1st, paid cash for insurance. Now, we're going to assume we don't need to put the date, the July down there again, because it'll just be a continuation. So just put the first again. Now your cash is going down. So that's a cash credit of 100. The second part we know has to go into prepaid insurance, but it doesn't have a special column for prepaid insurance. So we're going to use the general debit column for that, $100. But then you need to name the exact account it's going to go into, and you would put prepaid insurance in here. Paid cash at Dixon Company. So on the first again, it is you're paying money, so your cash is going down, which is a credit of 100. You know you have to put this in Dixon Company, but you don't have a special column for that. So you use the general debit amount or columns. So you owe them less, so it's going down by 100, and you would put Dixon Company in the account title. And just to give yourself a visual check here, make sure you have a debit and a credit for every one of your transactions. And I need to also put in check stub number 3, C3. I think I might have forgotten to do that on the one over here. So here I would put C2. And for now, the post-reference column is going to remain blank because you'll be posting eventually, but we haven't got to that part yet. Okay, here's a different one. Received cash from the owner as an additional investment in the business. Okay, it's happening on the first again. Your cash is going up this time, so we need a debit of 400. And we know that we have to put this into the capital, but we don't have a capital column, so we're going to use the general credit column. Put in the 400 here. You're going to put Gary Walters. I'm just going to abbreviate, okay? Capital. And you're going to, the document number that you got that from is receipt number 1. Okay, and make sure you have a debit and credit card on that line. Paid cash to the owner, Gary Walters, this time. Happening on the first again, your cash is going down, so you need a cash credit. We know we want to deal with the drawing, but we don't have a special column, so we're just going to put Gary Walters drawing. And that would be a general debit of 100. And it's check stub number 4. You have a debit and credit amount on that line, so you know that you're good. Okay, here's the only difference, one thing that makes things a little bit different. Received cash from daily sales, $300. Because the 300 credit will go in the sales credit, no account title is needed, so you place a check mark in that column. We're dealing with the cash debit and sales credit. So this transaction actually has 2 special columns, so you don't need to use the account title column, so you put a check mark in there. And you don't know why this is going to happen, but in the post reference column, when we get to that part, you won't need to post, so for this, you're also going to put a check mark in there. Okay, so your cash is going up $300, and your capital or your sales are being increased by $300. And that's coming from till take 1. And you can fill in a date on the first as well. Paid cash for July rent. So it's happening on the first. You know that your cash is going down $400. We have to put that into rent expense. Document number is C5, and it's going to be a general debit of $400 because expense accounts, the basket is getting more filled, so it's increasing. Okay, this will be exactly the same as the telephone bill, so just remember that that goes under the utilities expense. It'll be done just like the rent expense one just was. Same thing here, you have your broken window, we classify that into miscellaneous. Repair the seat spreader, remember that that is the equipment repair expense, done exactly the same as every other expense transaction. Okay, and then here is some activities that will help you. Okay, one last thing is you have to know at the very end of your combination journal, if you look on page 77, it'll show you an example of the whole combination journal put together. We did it separately, like every slide was separate, but on a combination journal, you just keep moving down a line and putting everything there. Once the combination journal is filled, you must prove that your work that far is correct by checking to see if your debits equal your credits. Very important. Okay, so here are the 4 or 3 steps that you need to do. You add each of the amount columns, so going straight down, you add them, and make sure that your debits and your credits equal the same amount. So you add up all your debits and all of your credits. And if you look on page 77, it shows you how to do that. So here's the rules. You're going to put a single underline across the amount columns directly below the last entry. The single line shows that you're adding. On the next line, you're going to write 13 in the date column, because if you look at that example on page 77, you've run out of room, so you need to transfer it onto a second page, because sometimes that can happen. You're going to write the words carried forward in the account title, because you're just taking those totals and you're carrying them forward to the next page. You place a check mark in the post reference column to show that nothing needs to be posted. You don't really know what posting is yet, but we'll deal with that. Then you need to write the column totals below the single line. So you add them all together. If your debits equal your credits, you rule a double line to show that all of your work is complete and it's balanced and you're ready to move on to the next page. Now you're ready to start at the top of the next page, so you need to make sure that you are putting combination page number 3 now, because you're on the next page. In the heading, after the word, you want to put the year, the month, and the date. You need to use the word brought forward, because that's what you did, is you brought forward all of those totals, and you need to put all the totals in there. And you place a check mark in the post reference column to show that nothing needs to be posted. You don't know what that is yet, but you will. You always prove and rule a combination journal at the end of each month. So, let's say you got done the month, but you didn't run out of room on your combination journal. Just stop where you are, single underline, prove, double underline. If the month had a lot of transactions and you have to do it on more than one page, you just continue on like I just showed you. Okay, I hope that helps.